It's harder to find it.
All right, let's get rocking and rolling.
Did everyone sign?
I need, and I think Brad. Have a pen to sign, here you go. Emily, nice to meet you. Hi, Ed.
All right, guys, I'm super excited to teach this CMA class. I love CMAs. It's just really exciting. This is gonna change your life. This class.
Oh, yay.
So I can't wait to share everything I know about CMAs because I get so excited. I have so much information. So who in here can tell me what CMA stands for? Anybody know what a CMA is?
Comparative market analysis?
What? No. CMA is Country Music Awards.
That CMA, okay.
George Strait got the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement last year. So I'm gonna share everything I know about the CMA awards. All right, so obviously this is a room full of like veteran agents. Anybody in here kind of new?
What's new for
Okay.
you?
So everybody here, show of hands, who in here does a CMA every time you have a listing appointment? Everybody. Okay, cool. So I'm probably gonna learn from you guys. The goal for today, obviously, is for possibly you can walk out of here with something different, new, a nugget that you can walk away with. And likewise, sharing is caring. So if you've got something that you can share, I definitely will steal anything that sounds good to use in our business as well. So, but, no, I mean, when we're doing CMAs, obviously, people do things a little bit different, and so I always love to learn, the way different people do their CMAs, so we'll jump into that. Why are we talking about CMAs today? Kind of random, but I think that given what's kind of going on right now in the market, it's relevant. So I like to look at, well, let me ask you a question. Why is a seller hiring you? Anybody?
Sell their home.
Right, sell their home. But in reality, though, they're not really just hiring you to sell their home. They're hiring you because they want to achieve a goal. And oftentimes, selling the home is really just a step towards that goal, right? So, and typically that goal is financial in nature. So, maybe they need to sell their home to buy another home. Maybe they want to sell their home to pay off debt. Maybe they want to sell their home to finance retirement, whatever. Oftentimes, probably most of the time that somebody's selling the home is really just one step towards the ultimate goal. And so if you think about it, when we're meeting with the seller, what we're really doing is we're helping them achieve whatever that financial element is that they're trying to achieve. And again, most of the time they're selling a home because they want to go buy another home. But that's a lot of responsibility if you think about it. And so that's why when I meet with a seller, I think it's important for me to first understand what their goal is, and then also for me to be able to give them reasonable expectations of what they can expect so that we can see if that actually aligns with their goal. Rather than just meeting with them and agreeing to list their home for whatever price that they want to sell for, I could be doing them an injustice. They may not actually accomplish their goal. So it's a pretty big responsibility. Also, I think that given what's going on in the market right now, what is going on in the market right now? What are you guys seeing in the market? Anything?
Days on market increasing.
Price reduction. Price reduction.
It, what's the values doing?
We're down. True.
I agree. I think that there's certain segments of the market that aren't really necessarily affected by what's going on, but then I think. I would say like maybe luxury, I would say lakefront, I'd say like, acreage properties. There's still a demand for that. Even though they are sitting on the market longer, and I've noticed the numbers that they're negotiating more. But, cookie cutter neighborhoods, you know, production neighborhoods, they're hurting bad right now.
Especially when you're.
Yeah. So I've got a theory I wanna share with you guys, on what's going on in the market and what I think's gonna happen. I'm gonna jump through here real quick. So bear with me here, but this is something I've been sharing with a lot of the sellers that I'm meeting with. I'm sharing this with every seller I'm meeting with, but I think it's important that they understand. This is a chart for the home value, average home value index for, Florida since 2000. Obviously, for those of you that are old enough to remember, in the early 2000s, we had, kind of a crazy period, 2004, 2005, where values were like just skyrocketing. Every time a listing would come on the market, it was like a feeding frenzy. And it was a lot of factors that came into play there, but it was a situation where, you know, your neighbor might list their home for 400,000, and then the neighbor next door, well, I'm gonna list mine for 425, and then the neighbor next door, I'm gonna list mine for 450, and you know, the banks were working with appraisers and all, and so it was a crazy period. But what I want to point out, in October 2006, that's actually when the market started going down value-wise. And it was based on economy. A lot of it had to do with, again, a lot of homeowners were maxed out. You know, basically they were home poor, like they were financed to the hilt, and a lot of people had adjustable rate mortgages. And they had adjusted, so we had a whole bunch of people starting to put their houses on the market, but the buyer pool had dried up and the interest rates had gone up. So the market started shifting, kind of similar to what's going on right now. And then the mortgage industry collapse was actually in 2008. So the market had already started going down for a couple of years before the mortgage industry collapsed. A lot of people don't remember that. And then it was 5 years to the bottom and another 9 years till we got back to where it was before the crash. 14-year round trip. That's the point I want to make. Obviously, that was a major stuff going on with our economy and the real estate industry and the mortgage industry. I don't think we're anywhere near like that. But what I want to point out is something up here, what's going on more recent. In October 22, our values started going down. And they dipped until about March of 23. And then they kind of recovered through it. But what was interesting is that, that's when interest rates were like almost at 7, and a lot of buyers kind of pulled out of the market. A lot of buyers just had to get out of the market because they couldn't afford, but between the prices of homes and now with interest rates, they were priced out. But I think because inventory was so low at that point, there was still enough demand to kind of pull us out of that dip. And then we had a similar drop in June of last year that started going down, and it's still going down. It has not recovered. And I think the difference is, this is inventory right here. When that first drop happened, our inventory was only like 80,000 homes, which is really low. Like up until about 2020, inventories stayed at around 130 to 140,000 homes. And that was enough with interest rates low, with the demand, that was enough inventory to keep values going up kind of consistently. And then after 2020, you can see a lot of people quit selling, but everybody was moving to Florida. Why? Because Ron DeSantis, you know, the state of Florida is open. Everybody wanted to move to the free state of Florida, right? And so you had all this demand coming in, but inventory dropped as low as 35,000 homes in the state of Florida in 22. And so even when interest rates worked their way up, it was still such low inventory that there was still enough there to kind of pull us out of that. But notice here, the second drop since the crash, we were back up to kind of that same inventory that we typically would have, about 130, but because rates were so high. I think it caused like values to start going down. We didn't have enough buyers to meet that demand or that inventory, and so values started going down. But what's happened since then is inventories continue to go up. And we're at like record high inventory right now. Like this chart, I think it was at 190,000. I would venture to say that when the next month comes out, we're probably gonna be over 200,000 homes on the market in Florida, maybe more. And interest rates are still high. And so my personal feeling on it is that this dip is not something that's gonna recover quickly. I have a feeling this is gonna be a couple year process. That's my personal take on it. It's gonna take two things for it to recover. One, we're gonna need an influx of buyers to come into the market. What would cause that to happen?
Ron DeSantis getting rid of property taxes.
Well, that's one thing, but that's probably not gonna happen. But what would cause a bunch of buyers to enter the market?
Interest rates.
Right, interest rates going down. Any talk about those going down anytime soon? Okay, so maybe end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. So let's just say that happens, it's probably gonna need to be a few drops before we finally get an influx of buyers. But then the second thing that has to happen is the buyers that enter the market have to eat up that excess inventory. This isn't gonna be fixed in a couple months. I have a feeling we're probably into a 3 to 5 year dip recovery. And the reason why this is important, when I'm meeting with the seller and I'm kind of explaining the market and they're kind of disappointed because, well, yeah, I heard the market's going down, or, well, wow, my neighbor down the street sold for this much or blah. Well, yeah, but that was 6 months ago. Things have changed. When I'm telling them what's going on in the market, I'm getting a lot of pushback, either, well, I want to price it up higher, or, well, I'll just wait. I'll just wait to list my home when the market comes back. And so my question to them is, how long are you willing to wait? Are you good with 3 to 5 years? Because it could be that, it'd be longer, maybe less. We don't know, but based on this, it's gonna be a while. And so, I think that this is very important information to share with the seller, especially one that, pushes back and wants to either overprice or wait for the market to come back. They may be waiting for a long time. And then the question is, well, if you wait for a couple years and then you have to sell, or you're just done, you're ready to sell. Well, what if the market's like 2, 4, 5% less than it is now? I mean, we know what it's at now. We pretty much know what you're gonna sell for now, but we don't know tomorrow or next year or 2 years from now. Anyway. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
You don't think a reduction in the insurance, them bringing more insurance companies in may change that as well, because their payments will be less?
I think that all of that will play along. If Ron DeSantis does something, I mean, our insurance industry is messed up. I don't know if you guys saw it in the news, I think it was yesterday, but we went from being ranked the #1 state that everybody wanted to move to. We're now the #1 state that people are moving away from. Because of insurance and taxes and
The food. prices-
traffic and weather.
Food prices here are more expensive than California or New York.
All the realtors calling all the time. It's like, man, I'm out of here. So, if the goal is financial for the seller, if pricing, I want to talk about pricing for a minute. I kind of jumped ahead. 3 things that sell a home, right? I usually go over this with sellers, but number 1, property preparation, getting your property ready to go on the market. Number 2, marketing, right? But the number 3 strategy to get a home sold is pricing. And a lot of people don't really look at pricing as a sales strategy. They just look at getting the home ready and then why they're hiring you to market their house, right? But pricing is not only an important strategy, it's probably the most important strategy if you really think about it. I can have a property that Nothing was done to get it prepped. I could have horrible marketing. I mean, you guys have seen some pictures on the MLS, right? But if it's priced right, it sells, right? I could have garbage swampland on the side of the turnpike, but there's probably a price somebody be willing to pay for it. So pricing to me is like key. And so when we meet with sellers, we actually have a pricing strategy as part of the process to sell their home. And we spend a lot of time articulating that to our sellers to make them understand, like, I actually spend more time talking about pricing and the importance of pricing. I spend more time talking about that than I do about our marketing plan and about who, our experience and all that kind of stuff. I spend more time on pricing than I do actually going over the CMA with the client. Like, honestly, going over the CMA with the client, I probably spend maybe 5 minutes on that. But I may spend 10 minutes pounding home with the importance of pricing and showing them from different directions and different ways and explaining it because I want them to kind of understand how absolutely important that is. And the other thing that's interesting about pricing is that that's 100% the seller's call. We can make recommendations, but they have the final say, right? And so it's really important that they understand how important that part of it is, because that's really, especially in the kind of market we're in right now, pricing is absolutely key. And I don't mean just like what we price it at the beginning. I'm talking about a strategy where this is where we're starting, and if we don't hit it by this is where we're going, et cetera, et cetera. So their goal is financial. Pricing is like the main strategy, I believe, to accomplish their goal. And obviously, we are in agreement that market values are going down. So that's why CMAs are so important right now in this market, because we have a huge responsibility to set proper expectations with the seller, make sure that they're getting accurate information. I've always liked doing CMAs and using that as kind of my tool to kind of like impress the seller. I feel like it allows me to demonstrate that at least I look like I know what I'm talking about when I'm with them, right? And it establishes us as the expert, excuse me. It also helps you build rapport with sellers. I mean, you can have different types of personalities with sellers, but by coming in with data and facts as opposed to just opinions, most people, like, they look favorably on that, regardless of whether, you click with that person or not. We live in a world of opinions. Everybody's got opinions, right? Chad's putting his opinion out in social media all the time. But when you come in with facts and data, it's hard to dispute that. And honestly, when I'm meeting with a client, I'm sure you guys do the same thing. Like, yes, they're interviewing you, but we're also kind of interviewing the client too. If we're giving them data and facts and like, it's pretty clear, this is what you need, where you need to price your home, and they're not being realistic, probably not somebody you want to work with. Or at least you might know that it's gonna be it's gonna be a challenge. And so, this guy, you ever had an appointment with this guy? The D guy? He respects the data, right? He might not necessarily agree, or maybe he's disappointed that the numbers aren't where he wanted, but he can't dispute the data, right? This guy, the analytical guy, the CPA that you meet with, he loves the data. And so when you bring in numbers and percentages and that sort of thing, this is love language, man. Like, he's like, and then the S, when you provide them data, they may not understand the data, but they trust you because it shows like, wow, this person spent time putting this together. They really do care to help me accomplish my goal. And so having a really good market analysis with data that clearly outlines like, this is what you can expect to happen. It really helps you impress regardless of the person. Again, there's some you're gonna meet with some people, obviously, they're just not rational, and regardless of what you show them, they're gonna say like, well, I still wanna list here. And then you just have to decide whether or not that makes sense for you. So when I'm preparing to do a market analysis, before I even start pulling comps and compiling data, the first thing I like to do is make sure I really know the market well. If it's a listing that's in, South Lake County or West Orange County, it's probably an area that I'm very familiar with because we've been doing this for a long time. And so, it's a little bit easier for me to prepare, but oftentimes, I mean, we'll get an appointment in an area that we're not really familiar with. I don't want to go to that appointment and not know everything about whether it's a neighborhood or an area or a community or a type of property or whatever. I want to know everything that's going on in that particular market segment, whether it's a macro market or a micro market. I want to know if I'm meeting somebody that's selling, land. I want to know everything that's going on with land in that area. If I'm listing a condo on the beach, I want to know everything about all the condos in that area, so that when I show up, I'm actually able to really assist them, and I'm not just, shooting at the hip. So, I take a lot of time and I really dig into the MLS and start trying to unpack what's going on in a particular market. And plus, I think what it does is it allows me to kind of determine like what direction I want to go in terms of the data I want to bring the seller. The other thing I like to do is I put myself in the buyer's shoes. I try to determine, one, like, who would my buyer be for this house? If I'm listing a $2 million home on the chain of lakes here in Claremont, who wants to buy a $2 million home on the chain of lakes in Claremont? I mean, I could get a nice home for $2 million in Windermere, like, so it's somebody that doesn't want to be in Windermere, they want to be in Claremont. So like, I'm always trying to think about that kind of stuff. The other thing I'm trying to do is like think, okay, if they're looking at this property, what else are they gonna be looking at? Because those are the comps I wanna focus on, or that's the area that I wanna focus on. Obviously, it gives you an overview of the subject property by doing that, but the other thing it does is it gives me directions on like the comps and the stats that I wanna compile. So for instance, I meet with a guy that has an older home in Leesburg, and his home is in really rough shape. And so I start kind of looking at like what's going on in that area, in that neighborhood and the surrounding areas. And what I see is that there's been a fair amount of homes that have sold in there that are the same age as his, but when I look at them, they're all renovated. I see some other homes that are still on the market that have been renovated. They've been on for a little while, and I see homes that are kind of in his condition, not that great, that have been on the market for quite a while. So now I realize I need to show him that the homes that are selling right now are the renovated homes. And you guys have probably noticed that too. Buyers in this market, they don't want to spend a penny on renovations. What I've noticed is they want move-in ready. And you don't blame them, because with interest rates and everything, they're already maxed out monthly with their payment. They're not gonna, a lot of buyers just don't have the money to do renovations. So, but the other thing too is that there's so many options for buyers right now. Why not get something that's move-in ready? So you can go to closing, get keys and move in, right? So, or another example, I had a listing appointment and the house was a 2-year-old home in a DR Horton community, nice home. Very reasonable prices in there. But I noticed that a few of the other homes in there they've been on the market for a while, and these are like 2-year-old homes, right? So as I'm unpacking it, I'm looking around, I noticed that there's another new DR Horton community literally right down the street selling the exact same homes as in this neighborhood. And they're giving away these homes. I mean, they discounted the homes, they're paying all the closing costs. I also heard that they're buying down rates. You have to compete with that, right? Especially in this market. Otherwise, it's not gonna sell. And so it's being able to see those kind of things, to be able to go into the seller and say, this is what you're gonna probably have to expect. It's gonna happen. Is unless you're willing to do X, Y, and Z, you're probably not gonna sell, or you're probably not gonna sell for what you wanna get. And then the other thing that by doing this, it gives me the ability to come up with some marketing ideas. So not always, I mean, but there are situations where if we have a certain type of listing that, we might say, ooh, this would be a good option. So for instance, listed a ranch with, nice horse barn and all that kind of stuff. And so looking at the comps, realizing that there really weren't a lot of comps kind of like this thing around here. Most of probably the closest area of comps were like Ocala, right? For what this was, like 40 acres, nice big house, which is kind of unusual here. And, so it kind of gave me an idea of like, I'm gonna focus on Ocala agents. I'm just gonna do all my marketing to Ocala agents, because if you think about it, that's the kind of property that, somebody from around the country or maybe even overseas might buy. And more than likely, if they're looking in Florida for ranches, for horse ranches, where are they looking? They're probably looking in Ocala, right? So I'm thinking, I'm just gonna leverage those Ocala agents. So all of my marketing was geared towards Ocala agents, and it worked. It actually, we had several different showings from Ocala agents or sending the buyer down to us. So, or another thing, like, vacant, like lakefront. Um, rather than just throwing it out there on Zillow or Realtor.com and just waiting for somebody to see it, focusing on, agents that sell lakefront property in that area, agents, that sell, do a lot of like new construction, and obviously construction companies that build in that area. And so a lot of the market, so anyways, kind of doing that sort of thing, but coming up with ideas based on the particular market niche that house is sitting in. And then again, to reiterate, giving the seller proper expectations. I know that there are agents out there that meet with sellers and their listing presentation is basically, so you wanna sell, how much were you thinking about listing your house for? That sounds like a good price, yeah, let's go ahead and write up the paperwork. That's their listing presentation. That's doing a huge disservice, especially in a market like this, because that seller may be selling with the idea that, well, I'm gonna sell it for this much. And I'm gonna walk away with this much money. But in reality, if that's not an accurate number, she's coming down. If that's not an accurate number, then that seller is either gonna have failure and end up having to take their home off the market, or they're gonna end up having to settle for a lot less. And so, again, I look at that as a huge responsibility, and I would rather a seller look at me and say, you know what? I was hoping we could do this, but since we can't, it's not gonna work. I'm not gonna sell my home. And I'd rather just walk out of there not getting the listing. Obviously, I'm gonna try to like help them think outside the box and come up with maybe another way to achieve their goal by selling the home for what it'll really sell for. But at the end of the day, just taking a listing that's not, and listing it at a price in today's market, that's definitely not gonna sell, is just, it's, I think it's wrong. So here's I just pulled up some stats, and I just used, the area that we're in right now, Claremont, Mineola. Just quick stats, again, kind of like whenever I'm meeting with somebody, I kind of want to like razzle them and dazzle them. I don't want to just show up with a CMA and just, okay, here are the comps for your house. I like to bring statistics too and kind of go over like some data. And again, sometimes they don't care, whatever, but I think it kind of shows that like, I have a clue what I'm doing, and that's the goal. So I pulled up some stats for like, these are production home communities in Claremont, Mineola. Not 55 plus communities, single family, no pool, 3 to 500,000. Basically, that's a nice way of saying cookie cutter neighborhood. 92 active listings right now. 313 days on the market on average. That's crazy. Now, I'm sure a lot of that's probably new construction, and that's why it's such high days on market. But if I'm a buyer looking for between $300,000 and $500,000 in Claremont, I got 92 choices right now on the market. That's crazy. And this is 500 to 700, which is actually really, I think, the sweet spot for most, what I would say, production neighborhoods right now in this area. 97 active listings. A lot of active listing. Here's stats. I pulled golf front communities, not 55 plus, just golf course. I think there's only like 2 or 3 in the area. Only 7 active listings. But it's still a 6.5 month supply. Lakefront homes. 30 actives right now, 72 sold in the last year. The average price of the actives is 1.2 million. And the sold average sales price to list price, they're negotiating 4% off on average, so there's a lot of negotiations going on the lakefront. Here's 55 plus communities, there's 109 active listings right now. Homes on acreage, 13 active listings. The average is about 5 acres on all of those stats, and again, 96% sales price to list price, so again, when I'm meeting with the seller, I'm letting them know. After, when we're doing the market analysis, but I'm also letting them know, be prepared to negotiate, cause you're probably gonna have to come down about 4%. Because that's the average.
Hey, Dave, where do you go to get your statistics? Are you just pulling it up on MLS?
Hey, you scared me.
I know.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Good
You're talking about the sales price to list price ratio, right? Like that number is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that number is based off of what the last list price on the market was, right? So when you're having these conversations with sellers at the table who are really trying to push that price, and then you're also trying to set the expectation against this data,
Right,
how does that conversation go when they may be like looking to price 3 to 4% above what your recommendation is? I'm just curious, like, do you have that conversation?
Yeah,
Or do
absolutely.
you
yeah,
wait until you get there, like, strategy, how does that?
well, I'm not really following too much, but basically, I mean, I just let them know that this is an expectation that they need to have, is that more than likely, they're gonna be negotiating off the price. And if they're already starting above the market value, then I mean, they're gonna be a lot more. What I always tell clients is, the numbers don't lie. When I do a CMA, a lot of times, especially like in a cookie cutter, I hate to keep using that term, but a neighborhood where there's a lot of activity, I won't just use 3 comps. I'm notorious for using 8, 10 comps. I get in trouble from Brandy because she just likes to do 3, but I'm like, I like the more the merrier, you know? If there's 10 comps and they all say the same thing, that's pretty compelling to a seller to say, all of these comps adjusted say this is the value.
And your house is not special.
Yeah, there's no gold statue hidden in the basement or anything. So the way I look at it is that then I tell clients, the numbers don't lie. Like, if you want to start high, that's fine, but you're gonna end up here. I'm telling you, you're gonna end up here. I have one right now that we actually got a contract higher than what I told this, the seller insisted on overpricing it. You did the open house on it the other day, and we ended up getting slightly above my top end of my range. And so she's like, see, look, we sold it for more than what you said. Well, we haven't gotten through inspection yet. So I'm like, just wait. Well, I didn't say that. to her. I don't wanna jinx myself. So, all right, so let's do a CMA. And, let me see if I can find one here.
Inspections and appraisal. Appraisal's getting slaughtered right now.
All right, so, what do you guys do your CMAs on? I'm curious.
Yeah.
RPR? Is it quick?
It's probably about the same, they're doing it on Toolkit,
Yeah.
it just presents differently.
I just
There's a lot of crap.
in the past with this.
And that's what they love about it.
It's full of junk info. I guess it's somewhat that, most of the time.
It always does a lot.
I'm gonna go to hell. Wait a minute.
RPR? Oh, Toolkit is something you purchase.
All right, whoever's got a computer, pull this property up on MLS. Anybody got their computer cranking right now?
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready. 4767 Cragmere. CRAGMERE. What'd you say, guys?
You said CRA.
Crag Mere, MERE.
Okay,
So what I was trying to do is find something that, had expired or got canceled or whatever. So that I had pictures to look at, cause obviously when we're doing a CMA, it's either something that's been in the MLS or, we're getting the data from the seller. So that we have something to work on, to use for a comparison. Let me log in.
when was the last one to sell in there? Joe, now you, I got it. That's right,
I got you.
you got me.
As best as you want that.
Oh, man. Chad, did you change the password?
It's Chad.
All right.
4767.
Did you pull that one up?
Yeah.
4767. Okay, cool.
So weird. I'm gonna direction.
All right.
Give me my option. The other. And we go like this.
Is it a loop or a road or what?
Just correct.
I think it's regular
You
loop.
go here, if we put in the address up here, you can hit all that, so you get all that at once. So always come this way for.
You gotta be
And get
kidding.
all that.
My computer's not automatically putting in my
And then how to go.
password and I don't know
You do you, boo. Go for here. You just put it in there and now there she goes.
them.
4767, kind of, yeah.
All right, you got it pulled up?
Never cried, so. I know what mine. What was your square feet? What is it?
I hope this is it.
41, 50. 3120. Or you can put that, commas, or start, commas, and then start, and then it will come there. Yeah, if you don't ever have to put words or you just put commas.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, password, yeah, you go.
Yeah, I can't even remember the password and I was trying to pull it up on my phone and it's,
Yeah, you.
Photo.
Oh, yeah. 553 sites.
What was the other one, man? Now let me see the rest of the passwords.
no. What's really annoying is that I'm logged in, but I don't know why it's not.
For some reason, with Google, it doesn't do different, but it's connect, files, I don't know why.
But
Oh, yeah, oh, you may know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
It works. Contact technical support. Ah,
Need this every time.
authenticate.
For protection.
Yeah. What I love about Dave is that he's always great. Always prepared.
well, yeah.
I love it.
with my
With this shed.
ancient laptop here.
Oh, look at that screen. How tiny.
Dave, I don't think they use, we don't use really chisels and stone anymore.
Jeez.
All right. Here we go.
He's not.
No. I'm gonna go there. Hi, you guys, a new home part of the Fiji.
Oh, that means they're hiring.
All right, 6, 7. Brag.
Why don't do that?
So typically when we get a call for a listing opportunity, first thing I do is I check and see if it was ever in the MLS before. I'm sure you guys do the same thing, right? It's, even though we're gonna like ask the seller, you know, the 15 questions that we ask them about their house and that sort of thing. It's always good if there's pictures and that sort of thing to be able to go in and look. So that's why I looked for something that was canceled. Had been on the market recently so that, we would have photos to look at and all that, but obviously also just to see if like, and the reason why it probably didn't sell was because pricing. Usually you can look at the history and pretty much know why something didn't sell. So obviously the first thing I do when I have a situation like this is I want to figure out, okay, where are my comps gonna be? If it's a neighborhood like this one, more than likely, I'm gonna be pulling the comps right out of the neighborhood, right? If there's enough. If there's not, I'm probably gonna have to go outside the neighborhood. And then it's a matter of which which areas do I go into? What?
Do you ever,
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
you ever go back,
Can you save your question till later?
you ever go back and see this is not you guys? Do you ever go back in time further rather than go outside? the
Yeah.
neighborhood? Like, when do you decide to go outside the neighborhood versus going back in time?
Well, yes, I do go back in time. As a matter of fact, right now lately, I've been going back a year.
Because it's stable.
It's been stable, but actually, I pulled up the stats and the quickest thing is honestly just just use Zillow. Go to Zillow 34711 or whatever the zip code is, home values, and it'll have a graph on there and it'll kind of show you like the past 12 months, what's been going on. And so actually, I just looked at it the other day for Claremont and it showed like almost 2% drop in the past year. So if I would still possibly I actually would use a comp a year ago, but I'm gonna adjust the value for that.
Do the full 2%.
Yeah, why not? And if it's like 6 months back, I'd probably adjust for like 1% off that sell price. I based it on the contract, cause the contracts went whatever market it was in, right? So if it went under contract a year ago, I'll probably take like 2% off in this particular market, but I'm gonna look at it for everything. If it's lakefront or something that's been pretty solid and stable, I probably wouldn't adjust.
Do you ever look to see when it went under contract? Because you never know if it was contingency to sell the property.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I use the contract date. I don't use the sold date.
Got it. Oh.
Yeah, cause the contract date, that's the market that it was in when it went
Right.
under contract. There was one comp in here that I was looking at and it was like, literally the contract date was like 2022 or something like, but it was new construction,
Yeah.
so it was probably like, it took them a year to build the house. So, but yes, I will go back in time. I wanna try to stay in that, if I can, in that neighborhood, if it's a neighborhood or in the area, if it's,
When do you decide to go back in time versus go outside the neighborhood?
well, I'll start out a year out. If I end up with way too many comps, I'll bring them in. I'll come in a little bit like more 6 months, that sort of
Is
thing.
that for those?
I usually just start out with just kind of like a blanket, like I'll go back a year. And then if it looks like and again, I haven't always been that way, but for the last few years, our market's been pretty. So I could use a comp that was a year back. We've just now really started to feel, I think, that the market going down. So, but it's also good to look at those comps so that you can show the seller the values are going down. Like, look, this is what sold a year ago. This is what sold 6 months ago. Right? Okay, so I'm gonna start out in the neighborhood if I can. But I'm also gonna look around, because like I said, if you don't look around, you might miss that there's a community, you know, very close by that's newer, maybe that's selling new homes, and that's very, especially in Claremont, Mineola, that's very prevalent. Almost just about every listing that I've been on lately, there's been a competing new home community nearby. So this neighborhood, Heartwood Landing, you guys probably all know where it is. It's down there off of Heartwood Marsh. Kind of across, I think, from, what is it, Hunter's Run or something?
Yeah, Hunter's Run.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Maybe
live there.
Yeah. My niece lived there.
So this particular, and again, this is an area I'm a little bit more familiar with versus like if I was looking at a home in Wildwood, Florida or something like that, right? So this community right here, that this subject is in, it's a newer community. It was built like in what, 23, 24, I think. Next to it, you've got, Regency Hills.
Yeah.
Which was built like in the early 2004. The next community over is like Southern Fields, which was built like in the mid, like 2005, 7, something like that. You've got, Heartwood Reserve
Glenwood, I think one of them's.
here.
I think that's reserved.
Yeah, and then this is that, Hunter's Run, which was built like in 2014. I think the next most competitive community to this one is Crestview, which is like,
Further up, and further north, or you get.
like right up in here, I think.
Yeah, it's that one, that's out.
I don't go
Yeah,
there.
and then there's that Waterbrook, which I think,
Far from my house.
yeah, Waterbrook right here, which is, Waterbrook, I think, is probably the Waterbrook and Crest is probably the closest in terms of comps. So, but then again, like, on the other side of 50, I think, it's Dream Finders that built this community.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, well, they're building a huge community up in Mineola, and I think it's the same homes.
Did you see there?
It's right up here. I'm trying to remember what it's called.
Hills of Mineola.
Hills of Mineola. By the way, I've got a website, Hills of Mineola, that I'm trying to get them to buy. No, I'm just joking. I bought all these like Hills of Mineola, Mineola Hills like years ago, thinking I'm gonna get rich off this, and nobody's wanted to buy them. So.
Just hold on a little bit longer.
Yep. So anyway, here's an interesting question. If they're building the same homes up here that's in the community that our subject property's in, and this is all brand new up here, and it's Mineola High School, everybody wants their kids to go to Mineola High School. That's kind of tough. Now, granted, prices may be a lot higher because it's new, but maybe not.
But those are newer, and you're closer to the show build and the key that's going.
Right.
so-
right.
To whatever.
So again, though, I'm looking at it from a buyer. I'm a buyer. If I'm looking at my listing,
Okay.
what else am I looking at?
Stuff that's close by.
Right? So like, would I be comparing to the same builder, the same home, but brand new up in Mineola, the new area and all that? So again, those are the things I'm thinking about. And so I want to definitely see what's going on up there and see what the prices are so that my seller can make a smart decision in terms of pricing. Because what would really stink is if we had no showings because everybody was going to the new community where they're probably paying for closing costs and buying down rates and all that kind of stuff. All right, so I did my research and I determined that there's enough comps in this community that I don't necessarily need to go outside the community. And if I did, I would probably have to go a fairly good ways. Otherwise, I'm comparing a 2023 home to a 2007 home or a 2014 home, which if I had to, I absolutely would. But if I don't have to, I won't.
How does, cause I know that, appraisers don't typically do that. Do they do that? Do they go outside?
It depends on what the bank is requesting. You know, cause the bank may say like specifically, I want one comp in the neighborhood, I want one comp outside the neighborhood, I want one comp that was, a lot of times they'll dictate exactly what they want.
I see.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull up this community, what is it called? And one thing I noticed was that it's in there a bunch of different ways, so I'm just gonna put an L. Active pending, sold. Now I'm gonna go back a year. Even though you guys don't like it.
If you look at expireds.
Actually, I don't. One of the things I'm doing right now is I'm putting a lot more emphasis on actives than I used to. Because of the market we're in. So when you're in a market that's going up, you obviously just need to price ahead of that, right? You can actually overprice a little bit and the market will catch up to you. When you're in an even market, you just need to hit the sweet spot. If you hit the sweet spot, you'll probably get some activity. But when you're in a down market, really, you need to be the best deal in the neighborhood, or I should say the best value. You don't necessarily have to be the cheapest, but you have to be the best value for what you got versus what else is out there. And so I might look at solds to give me an idea of like, okay, this is the range we need to be in. But then I go right to the actives and the pendings are important too, because that's like the most recent activity. But I go to the actives because that's my competition. And if there's the same thing on the market or close to it, but less, I'm an idiot if I price it more thinking that I'm gonna sell before they do.
Yeah, so I've actually been changing the language now that we're more in buyer's market. Instead of like comparable market analysis, I do focus a lot on active, all of the competitive market analysis.
I'm gonna steal that. Where's a pen?
Yeah, because they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, in this market, we have to be more competitive. We can't compare to the past. That's.
You're right. You're right. So I use the past as a guide, but right now, especially in communities like this where you might have quite a few listings. Or an area where you might have new construction or whatever, definitely look at the actives. I had a listing appointment the other day that I did not get because, it was an older home that the guy had renovated and he did a really good job. It was a nice home, but there was so much new construction around him that they were giving away. And I told him, you gotta be competitive with this. No buyer's gonna buy your home and pay more. You know, you've got an older Corvette and they're selling the new Corvettes for a lot cheaper. Nobody's gonna come buy unless it's a classic, right?
Yeah, it's
Nobody's
also-
gonna buy it.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that buyers buy monthly, so they're giving away like at 4%. Yeah, the price might be there, but it's
Right.
like $700 a month cheaper. And as a buyer, are you like more payment sensitive or price sensitive? And most will be payment sensitive. So you have to price it so that it's payments equivalent, which is unfortunate.
All right,
Sorry to
so
scare y'all again, but did you say you call it a competitive analysis versus comparative? Is that what I heard?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he
I
said.
like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely stealing that. Competitive. All right. How we doing on time? 3 o'clock. All right, so I pulled up everything that's going on in this community. Active, pending, and sold for the past year. Just to kind of give you a quick map view here of where it is. There's a community right there. I feel pretty certain that we can pull enough comps out of that. The other thing I'll do sometimes real quick is I'll just pull the stats real quickly. This little tabular. And just kind of like get a quick overview of what's going on in the community. So there's 14 active listings. 1 pending, 17 have sold in the past year. I'm looking at like my average days on market for my actives right now, 123 combined. Only 1 pending. And then of the 17 solds, they averaged like 90 days on the market and they sold for 97 of list price, which is below our average. Our average in Claremont's been pretty much 99% for years. Any way you cut it, it comes out to 99%. And if this neighborhood 97%, and like you said, that's not the true, it's probably less because people have reduced their price until they've gotten it sold. And then they've negotiated 3% off of that on average. So, that tells me that it's probably a harder neighborhood to sell in, and it's probably a situation because it's so new. People are trying to get what they at least paid for their home, maybe make a little bit off of it. In some cases, they're probably losing. And that's probably why there's been quite a few that were taken off the market, I noticed, because again, it was so new. They were trying to sell it for what they needed to sell it for, to like maybe walk away with a few bucks or break even, and they couldn't, and they didn't want to take a loss. So anyway, any questions on any of that? All right, so what I typically do is I'll go through here and I'll start figuring out which ones I want to use. So I'm gonna narrow this down a little bit more criteria wise, based on the square feet of my subject, which is like, what is it, 2546? You still have that subject property pulled up? Okay. Active sub,
Not you.
That's what it was.
Oh.
25, 2546. All right, so it's all good.
Okay.
So, what I typically do is I'll try to stay within about 10 or 20% of the square foot of my subject property. So this one is 2546 square feet, so it'd be like 2,200 on the low end and probably 2,800 on the high end. 2546 times 1.1. Yeah, we'll just do 28. So I'm gonna narrow it down here. 2,200 to 2,800. All right, so that knocked me down to like 11 comps.
Would you say that again, that you stay within 10 to 20% of the subjects?
Yeah, I try to stay within about 10 to 20% of the subject property square feet. That way I'm not comparing a 3,000 square foot home to a 2,000 square foot home. But you can't always do it, so it's kind of a judgment call. Like in a neighborhood like this, I should be able to, there's been enough sales in there. But let's just say it's not in a neighborhood like this. Let's say it's in downtown Claremont or some, just rural or whatever. I may have to, to find the closest like kind comparable, I may have to like use a comp that's a lot bigger, a lot smaller. So for instance, let's say my subject property is 5 acres. And it's a 2,000 square foot home on 5 acres, right? Well, I might look around, I might go 5 miles out, 10 miles out, looking at, 5 to 10 acre properties. And everything I find is either a lot larger or a lot smaller, but nothing around that 2,000 square foot. I'm gonna have to find one that is the closest that may be larger, and then I'm just gonna have a much bigger adjustment for the square feet. That's one way to do it.
If you have a listing with it's a new construction, when you do the CMA, that you use just new construction, you use it.
I will at times use new construction. I try to avoid it when I can, but if it's a new house, I might use new construction. And again, in this particular scenario, whoever's buying this house is likely gonna be looking at new construction. So even, I try not to adjust for new construction, because a lot of times you don't know what they did. You don't know like what kind of upgrades they had done. I mean, you don't even know if they added a pool. A lot of times they just don't tell you what they did. So it's kind of hard to compare. But I definitely like to bring new construction statistics with me, like.
Yeah, because my listing is new. When I try to explain to my seller that he has to put the price down, I send the CNA, and I always use new construction because in the area there are a few houses like.
Right.
I think with a new construction.
Yeah.
I use new construction. Of course, I said all the one showing all the houses around.
Yep, so when you do new construction, another thing to look for is if they had seller credits, because a lot of times they're giving $15,000, $20,000 in seller credits, which is important if you can even get that information.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, if you can go to the builder and get their incentive sheet, just bring it to the seller.
Yeah.
Like, you wanna match these.
Okay, thank you.
all right, so what I normally do at this juncture is I will literally go through each one of my comps and look at all the pictures. I kind of just fly through it real quick, but I just want to get an idea of the property compared to my subject property. I'll look at like anything else, like for instance, if there's a comp in here, I think that had a pool I saw, I'm gonna probably kick it out. Because, yeah, it's this last one here. I'm not gonna use this one that has a pool because my subject doesn't have a pool and I don't need to add this one in. I've got enough comps here. But what I'll do at this juncture is basically just kind of go through, look at all the pictures so that as I'm doing my CMA, I can make adjustments accordingly. I will say, when you've got a home like this, it's a newer neighborhood, most of the houses are very similar. Like an appraiser is gonna walk in there and say, they all have countertops, they all have a stove, they all have floors, they all have a roof. He's not gonna make a huge adjustments between somebody that maybe they added crown, or this guy added like the special trim work or whatever in his house, or had a special thing painted in their bedroom or whatever. Appraiser's not gonna adjust for that kind of stuff. They're just gonna say they're pretty very similar homes. But I am gonna look because I wanna make sure that like if somebody went in there and they had like, hardwood floors put throughout, and then all the other homes have like tile in the wet area and carpet in the bedrooms, I'm gonna probably adjust for something like that. But again, neighborhood like this, it's pretty easy because those adjustments are very minimal if you even make them. When you start getting outside of a neighborhood like this, that's where you have to really kind of start looking at like the interior and adjusting, because you could have $100,000 in adjustments for just like quality, condition and stuff like that. I'm not even talking yet about lakes and pools and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about like interior features. And so that's why I'll kind of fly through and look at the pictures and that sort of thing. I'm gonna go ahead and mark the ones that I had chosen just to kind of keep us going a little quicker here.
Very complicated for them, those homes, and there's barely any screened rooms in that.
Yeah,
Training.
yep. As long as people keep buying them, they'll keep building them, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So after going through all of my comps and literally just looking at every picture, which I usually just kind of like fly through them like this, just to kind of get an idea of what I'm dealing with. So after looking at everything, I narrowed down my comps to these 3 actives and these 4 solds. And then, like I told you before, the other thing I do after I do my CMA, which we'll do here real quick, I still want to go back and look at the overall community, look at the overall area, because I want to make sure that I bring my seller anything else that's pertinent, that's gonna like show them, here's what's going on right now in the area, whether it's south of 50 or all of 34711 or all of Claremont, whatever. Like, I want to make sure that I'm bringing them pertinent statistics. And so I will look to see, like, one of the things I do when after I finish my CMA, I'll come up with a range, a value range, low end, high end, sweet spot. Then I'll go back and I'll do a reverse search based on that price range and see what else is out. What, if I'm a buyer and this is my budget, what else can I buy in the area for this kind of money? Cause I want to look to see cause that's my competition. That's who any buyer looking at my listing is going to be looking at those properties, probably likely because they're in that same price range. Does that make sense? And so I'll kind of reverse that too, just so that I can bring that information to the client. All right. So here are the 3 actives, 4 solds that I used in my CMA. Price adjust. Okay. Here's where it gets fun. So the CMA program that we use is called Toolkit CMA. You guys use RPR, some people use MLS, there's a whole bunch of different tools out there. I like this because we've already got it set up with all the formulas and everything, so we can just pull up, import the data, and then it kind of like
I'm gonna check into this.
organizes it for us, and then all we have to do is go in and make our adjustments. So that's the big thing is like, how do you guys do your adjustments and what amounts do you use? And I'm curious what you guys do, like when you're doing your adjustments.
I just make it up.
I do too.
You make it up?
Shake it like a magic ball.
No, I use the appraisal guide, whatever that was.
Oh, yeah, Kelly was.
Kelly Kellogg, yeah.
She has a new one. Did you get the new one? It just came out in January.
And what else, what do you guys use? What do you use, Ed?
I just look at past appraisals,
Okay,
like recent appraisals, not past appraisals, yeah,
recent appraisals,
on other properties.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like, you know, if I have like 5 buyers in the last year, I'll just go through all of their appraisals if I have access to them. Now, a lot of
Okay.
times I do, if I ask for it.
so when you sit down with the seller, you're basically showing them comps. And then,
So my CMA, I have a cover sheet, which kind of it's an educational base, so it'll be like, hey, this is why we're looking at actives, this is why we're looking at pendings, this is why we're looking at flow, what to look for, based on market, blah, 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 right? And then I have a similar thing to Kelly Kellogg based on recent appraisals.
I got you.
Hey, a pool is probably, like recently, our appraisers have been giving 6 to 8% depending on blah, blah, blah. Countertops, they're not giving anything.
Right.
And then they're like, so I get buy-in, they're like, this is what, do you agree? And they're like, cool, you understand this part. Then we look at the comps and we're like, this is why the prices, and they're like, yeah, I got it, because you taught me the adjustments.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else got anything unusual that they do?
That's clever.
Anybody? All right, so, the way I do it is very similar to that Kelly Kellogg. Matter of fact, I made my own cheat sheet using theirs as kind of a basis, and then, and I just kind of keep up with it. And so when I'm talking to appraisers and stuff, I'll ask them like, what did you adjust for this? Or if I'm looking at appraisals, I'll look like, I wonder what did they adjust for a pool on this particular house in Claremont or whatever. And typically they're all usually in line. Sometimes you'll see kind of a weird one out there. But, so I just try to keep up with it that way. And then every once in a while we'll update our sheet. But we've got the adjustments that we make for like the main things like age, heated square feet, bath, roof, like tile versus shingle, AC, old versus new, granite versus formica, flooring, garages, pools, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Where do I find that?
I'll give you a copy if you want it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and again, this works for me, but it's not like the law, like, I just,
Too much.
it works, I use it. And again, I try to keep up with like local appraisers and stuff about like what they're using for their adjustments to try, but again, a lot of it's just judgment call. One of the big questions I get asked a lot is, how do you adjust for square feet? And so I kind of came up with a formula that seems to work for me. Again,
Will you share it? Let's hear it.
so what I noticed is a lot of the adjustments that appraisers make, it's usually about a third of whatever it would really cost. That's about the norm. So what I started doing was taking my my average price per square foot and just taking a third of that and using that as my adjustment for square feet. Now, the trick is if you've got like a really expensive item, like maybe acreage or a lake frontage or something, sometimes you have to remove that to get it just down to the house, just down to the dwelling for that to work. So for instance, if I have a 2,000 square foot home on the chain of lakes, that's probably worth $1 million, right? Because it's on the chain of lakes. Well, let's say the chain of lakes adds what? What does it add these days? 500,000? 600,000? So if I take $600,000 off of that price, now my price per square foot is a lot less, right? So what I do is for a home like this, it's super easy, especially like none of these even have pools. So there's no really like high dollar ticket item on here that could really like jack up my price per square foot a lot. So I take the average price per square foot on these, which, you know, you can pull up with that quick report right here. So here's my comps. If I do this like stats right here. My average sold price per square foot is $227, okay? What's 33% of 227?
Oh, so I'm doing it right. I was like, we don't do that.
227 times 0.33, $70, $70 a square foot.
Oh, no.
So I would use that as my price, my adjustment per square feet. And it works. Along with the other adjustments, it works. Another thing I've been doing lately that's kind of like a lot quicker is rather than back in the day, we would adjust for flooring, countertops, like all these interior things. Now I'm just doing like a condition adjustment, a lot quicker. So, and then, and again, it's a total judgment call, but if it's a home like this, I may say scale 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. And if the house, my subject property is like an 8, then I look at the comps and I adjust it to that one being an 8. So this one would be, it's about the same, it's an 8. This one, you know, they went a little cheaper on their flooring, so I'll do this one as a 7 or a 6 and that sort of thing.
How do you adjust pricing on each level?
Again, total judgment call, but for a home price like this, I would probably use $10,000 to $20,000 per. And I don't want to get too deep into this because we could get into the weeds here, but it's just a lot quicker. If you think about it, what did we used to adjust for flooring?
I know, it's out of the price point.
So yeah, for like a $500,000 home, on my cheat sheet here for flooring would be like $8,000 to $10,000 for like the extensive tile or wood versus like kind of a carpety tile house. Okay, so well, there's 10 grand, right? So if I got a house that's got nice flooring, nice kitchen, nice bathrooms, it's probably a $30,000 adjustment. So I just adjusted 3 points. If my subject property is like an 8, then I might just call that one a 5, just so I can move quicker through it.
So, well, I just had a quick observation, because you're coming from it with a ton of experience. So you kind of already have like an idea of like how to ballpark that stuff. For someone who doesn't have a ton of experience, who's not done a lot of this, like, how would they ballpark when they have no idea of a reference point?
I don't know.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's my question.
Thanks for bringing that up, guys. Thanks for pointing that out. No, I don't know. I mean, again, it's just experience. Asking people, asking other agents questions, like, what would you do with this? What would you do with that?
That's in your appraisals and ask the appraiser.
Yeah, I mean, like you, Gus, man, you asked a million questions every day for years. I'm just joking. Exhausting, Gus. All right, so anyway, that's just, or you could just use this cheat sheet and kind of like, but it's all a ballpark, and I will tell you that you can make a $10,000 adjustment on one property. And when you average it out with all the other stuff, with all the other properties, it may shift your value up like $1,000 or a couple $1,000. So it's not, you can't really be wrong unless you're just like way off, okay?
Can you share these slides with me too, Dave? Don't forget me on here.
Sure. All right, so,
CPR around here.
all right, so let's get into some adjustments here real quick. All right, so our first, I wish my screen was larger. Sorry, guys. All right, so the first, comparable property we have, And again, remember, all of these are in the same community. They're all very similar in age and style and all that stuff. First, comparable property is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath versus a 2.5 bath versus a 4-3. So my adjustment for a full bath in this price range, I should have probably passed these out so it made sense.
You still can.
$6,000. Okay, so, so what do? I add a bathroom here. So I'm gonna add 6,000. And then my first comparable has a half bath, but my subject doesn't, so I'm gonna take off half of a bath, so 3,000. Age is very similar, so I don't need to adjust there. So for square feet, can somebody do that math for me? So 2546 for the subject minus 2235. And then what were we doing, 70?
21,000.
So we're gonna add 21,000. Everybody understand that? Again, we're,
No.
Oh, just kidding.
You can price.
He's
we get it fixed.
multiplying the difference in square foot by that.
okay, so see, this is the subject property right here, 2,546 square feet, and then this is the first comp. Okay? And so when you subtract the differences, how much?
It was just under 300 square feet.
Okay, and then we decided that we were gonna use $70 a square foot as our adjustment. And that was based on our average times 33%. All right, I did an adjustment for the size of the lot because my subject property, it's actually a really big lot. It's like 0.29. It's like a corner lot. It's a huge lot. So I'm sure they paid a massive premium in that neighborhood for it. But I think I did like a $10,000 adjustment. And then, let me see if there's anything else on here. Yeah, so we got a 3-car versus a 2-car, and on my little cheat sheet, a 3-car versus a 2-car at 500,000 is like $8,000 difference, so I'm gonna add 8,000 here. And this property was fenced, and this first subject is not fenced, so that was, like $7,000.
Space and office space, that would not be the same, correct?
Yeah, I'm just gonna fly through this one real quick here.
Okay.
All right, so my first comp, it sold for 512, right? But after adjusting, now we're at 624. Make sense? I feel like we're missing something on that one.
Yep.
Can you explain the difference of the numbers?
Yeah, I think we've got something. Oh, I see what it is. I gave a $70,000 credit for a fence.
I was like, yeah, that didn't add up.
That's a nice fence. Okay, there we go.
Alright, let's get it.
So now we're at like 561. That's a little bit more in range. I was like, something ain't right here. All right, so this next comp, we've got a 3 full baths and we got 1 half, so I'm gonna take this half off. I actually adjusted $3,000 per year on this one for age. Somebody do the math for me. 2546 minus 2368.
Okay.
$8,000.
$8,000. Anybody?
I think somewhere around.
Anybody got a calculator?
Do it right now. 368 minus 230.
No, 2546.
Sorry, 2546 minus what?
12,460.
Is that at 70? Okay, we got an answer over here. We're gonna go with this answer.
The difference times 70, right?
All right, so it was 12,700.
12,460.
Okay, I'm just gonna just use 12. All right, and then we're gonna do another 10,000 here for adjusting for the size of the lot. Is there anything else on here? It's a 3-car garage. They didn't have a fence either, so we're gonna give them a fence. And that's it, I believe, for that one. All right, next one, Lions Gate. We've got a full bath here, so we need to take off a bathroom. We need to take off this half bath. This one is a year newer, so we're gonna take off a year. And then 2688 minus 2546.
We didn't adjust the bedroom above, just the other one, right? 9,940.
We're gonna do 10,000 on that one. Which one were you asking about?
Sorry. Second one.
This one?
Bedroom is 3.
Yeah, I'm not gonna adjust for the bedroom.
Okay.
Square footage, take that.
Yeah, it kind of falls on the square feet. If it was like,
The other.
if I was dealing with like 5-bedroom homes and then I only had like a 3-bedroom home, obviously that's a different buyer. I may adjust at that point. And I know appraisers actually do adjust for like room count and all that stuff, but I'm not appraising this. I'm not trying to come up with like a value. I'm trying to come up with a range that the market's indicating. So, this one I adjusted for the lot size. This is only a 2-car garage, so we're gonna give it another garage here. What else? No fence, so we'll give this one a fence. This one is Lions Gate, and if I remember correctly on this one, do you guys, when you're doing this, do you check for, seller credit?
Yeah.
Good. This one got a $20,000 seller credit, so I definitely subtract that because that's huge. This is the one that the seller's telling me, well, John down the road sold his for 560. I'm like, no, actually he sold for 560 minus 20,000.
That's why I explain to people when they say Zillow says, yeah, but it doesn't show.
Right.
condition.
And one thing I did, which I always do before I go to a listing appointment, is I pulled up Zillow for this house
To see what it.
to see what the value is and look at the comps that they used, because I know that the seller's gonna go, well, Zillow told me I'm at $700,000. And I'm like, yeah, but Zillow, look at the comp Zillow used. You know what I'm saying? And I actually looked at the comps and like 2 or 3 of the comps that it used was Timberlane. You guys know where Timberlane is? Or like acre lots in there. I don't even know how they came, but that was 2, I think 2 of the comps that it used was that.
They try to use the most recent.
Yeah, they don't admit their opinion.
I haven't been able to figure out Zillow.
Your adjustments that you make for year difference, is that
Because it shows it
based
at the
on
bottom of the page.
what's like kind of like has happened over
Yeah, sure,
like
probably.
with the current market, like where do you gave 3,000 for each year, was that kind of determined on how the market has been over that course?
I think that the year adjustment, I'm actually doing that based on like quality of construction.
Okay,
I will do adjustments for actually the sale date if it's older, which I think I did do some adjustments on this. I just haven't put them in there yet. All right, so give me 2546 minus 2220.
22,000.
Oh, you're Johnny on the spot. 22 what?
22,820.
Okay, we'll go 2,300 or 23,000. Okay, this one was also a big lot. It was like 24, a quarter acre, so I didn't adjust for that. And then this one was also a 2-car, so we'll adjust for that. And this one was a big corner lot. It was fenced like our subject, so no adjustment there. And then the last one here. So this is a 3-bath, very similar. I honestly shouldn't even adjust for the square feet because it's almost the same. And it's a quarter acre, so I'm not gonna adjust there. 3-car garage, fenced. So. The only other thing I did is this one, that's the one I was telling you about. Look when this one went under contract, September of 23. So probably because it took probably a year for it to build. So, but I did take 2% off this one. Because remember I told you guys, if it. Per Zillow, our values went down like 1.9% on average in Claremont. So I took 2% off this one because I want to try to indicate to the seller what. Yeah, it was a little higher then, but now it's not. So what's 2% of 615? It's like 12,000, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take 12,000 off of that. And then there was another one here, I think this one. So this is 6 months ago. Well, when you look at the chart, the Zillow chart, it's almost a perfect curve. So if a year ago was 2%, then I'm gonna say 6 months ago, the value is probably for about 1% higher. So I'm gonna take 1% off this one. So I'm gonna take 5,800 off this. Not 58,000. And then let me see if there was any other older ones. This one was a year ago. So I'm gonna take 2% off that. What's 2% off? I'll just take 10,000 off of this one.
The one next to
Yeah,
it.
we'll raise 24 too.
Yeah,
It's 2 years old.
mine speed is also 8.
Oh. Minus. What would that be?
11,200.
Just take 11,000. All right, I think that's it. All right. So now, when I look down here, we're at an average of about 566. 570-ish. So the way I've got mine set up right now, the system is set up to, because of the market we're in, we're taking our average and we're going about 2% under that for the low end, and we're doing like 1% above that for the high end. And we vary that depending on the market we're in, but right now because we're in a downward market, I don't want to have my high end too high. Because I really want my client to price in that sweet spot or at the bottom of it. And what I've noticed is clients that are pricing at the sweet spot or less, we're getting a lot more activity and we're getting property under contract quicker. People that are pricing at the high end, they're quickly finding themselves overpriced.